Hey guys, study guide review time. I'll try to be quick again. Remember that tomorrow's test is not multiple choice. You need to know these answers and be able to write them down. So, let's go. What were the four main causes of the war? Remember, main. M is militarism. A is alliance system, or just alliances. I, imperialism. N, nationalism. I'm going to give y'all the benefit of the doubt on this and assume you do remember what all those mean. And if I ask you that on the test, you just need to write those four things down. You don't have to define each of them. 2, which countries made up the Triple Alliance? Remember Triple Alliance, the beginning, this is the bad guys. So that would be Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Number 3, which countries made up the Triple Entente? Great Britain, France, and Russia. Remember, Entente's that French word, so keep in mind who was with the French. Number 4, the Balkans is an area in Europe that was known as the powder keg, because what happened there sparked the war. Here I want a couple things. Remember I told you never have to tell me the whole scenario of the assassination again, but you need to know a couple things. You got to know who. Archduke Franz Ferdinand. If you just do Franz Ferdinand, that's okay. If you just do Archduke Ferdinand, that's okay. All right? You have to know he's from Austria-Hungary. I'll take just from Austria, if you must. And then you have to tell me where his assassin was from. Serbia is your answer there. You don't have to name the assassin. You just have to know he was from Serbia. Okay? So, Archduke Franz Ferdinand from Austria was assassinated by a Serbian, a guy from Serbia. All right, number 5. Where was the Western Front? Where was the Eastern Front? Remember, when we're talking East and West, we're talking about East and West of Germany. So Western Front is in France, Northern France to be specific, and the Eastern Front is the German-Russian border. You can just put Russia if you want for Eastern Front, and that will be right. Okay. What was the Schlieffen Plan? Specifically, which country came up with the plan and how was it supposed to work? Schlieffen Plan. For one thing, just remember the word Schlieffen is a German word. So you need to know it's Germany's plan to invade and conquer France quickly and then hurry back over to fight the Russians. Okay, so Schlieffen Plan is a German plan to fight France and knock them out of the war and then quickly go back over on the Eastern Front and fight Russia. Number 7, why was the First Battle of the Marne considered the most important event of the war? The answer here is because it ruined the Schlieffen Plan and it forced Germany to fight a two-front war. Okay? So First Battle of the Marne ruined the Schlieffen Plan and now Germany has to fight on both sides, a two-front war. 8, what was the point of the Gallipoli Campaign? What were the Allies trying to accomplish and were they successful? All right, Gallipoli Campaign is when they were trying to capture, go through the Strait of Dardanelles so that they could knock Turkey or the Ottoman Empire out of the war and have a new route to supply Russia. It was not successful. It was a horrendous loss for the Allies, okay? But the whole point was to be able to knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war and be able to supply Russia via the Strait of Dardanelles, okay? And it was not successful. Okay, 9. What are 4 reasons the U.S. joined the war on the side of the Allies? You need to know all 4 to get this right. Okay? Number 1 was the unrestricted submarine warfare. Or you could just say, the German submarine sinking ships, however you want to put that, just so you know that submarines is one of them. Another one is the Zimmerman note. Remember that note that the Germans, or the telegram the message that they sent to Mexico, trying to get them on their side, and the U.S. intercepted it. All right, so Zimmerman note is your second one. Then the fact that we have a similar ethnicity and government as the British, similar language, all that good stuff. I would wrap that up in linguistics and ethnicity, however you want to say that. And then the last one is economics. We did more business with the Allies. So the four together: the unrestricted submarine warfare, we didn't like it. It affected us negatively. The Zimmerman Note, didn't like that either. The fact that we had a bond both linguistically and ethnically with Great Britain, and they were on the side of the Allies, and the fact that we did more international business with the Allies, so we had economic ties to them. Those are the four reasons. 10, why did the war become such a stalemate for so many years? Simplest answer there is trench warfare. Once people dug in and had equally matched weapons, it wasn't going to go anywhere. All right? So there was a lot of loss of life, not a lot of gaining of territory. So the fact that we were well matched in weaponry and both dug in the trenches, that caused a stalemate. All right, 11. War used to be considered a glorious, noble, necessary endeavor. Why did the Great War change that perception? Right? Well, this is the first war that you had the kind of technology that could take so many lives in so little time. So the loss of life that was just a grander total than the past was big. The fact that more soldiers were literate and wrote letters about their everyday life, it was one of the first time that kind of thing was documented. And so you couldn't pretend that war was a great thing anymore because people knew how horrific it was on a daily basis. And then just the fact that it was on such a global scale and it was a total war that so many countries and so many people were tired of sacrificing their men, sacrificing, their rationing, sacrificing their economic advantages. They were sick of war after this, and so it really changed the whole perception. What is total war? That's when a country and its government are involved in the war effort on every level, including things like rationing, supplying the military, government bonds, government making rules about maybe limiting freedom of speech if it affected the war, things like that. The government is completely invested in the war. 13, what is propaganda? Give an example. All right, propaganda is when you're given one-sided information in order to influence your opinion a certain way. And you can give any of those examples that we talked about in class, the different posters and the kind of things they said to convince people that the war was good. I'll leave the example part to you. 14, name at least 2 new technologies that were used in the war for the first time during World War I. You can say several things here. You've got barbed wire. You've got machine guns on both sides. Not the first war it's ever used in, but the fact that everybody had them for the first time. Tanks, new invention. The airplane was new for war. Poison gas was new. And let's see what else. Submarine. You could say submarine. Any of those will do. 15. What happened in March of 1918 that gave Germany a real hope of finally winning? This is when the Russians pulled out of the war. Remember, they had their revolution back home. They had a new leader, Lenin. And he decided to appease the Russian people, give them what they wanted. And what they wanted was out of the war. All right, so 15, the big thing that happened was Russia left the war. They signed an armistice to stop fighting Germany. 16, when the war was over, what were the 4 main consequences for Germany in the Treaty of Versailles that helped fuel the fire for World War II? Remember, Germany was given all the bad stuff at the end of the war. Okay, so number 1, they got the blame or all the war guilt. Number 2, they had to severely limit their military. Number 3, they had to pay reparations. But if you can't remember the word reparations, it just means paying for war. And they paid billions. And lastly, they lost a lot of land, lost territory. So they shrunk and gave up all that power. Those 4 things, because it so demoralized the country, the German people in particular, that's kind of what made them embrace the future with Hitler. 17, what was the general purpose of the 14 points and who wrote them? General purpose, 14 points, your book kind of, what do I want to say? I mean, it points out specifically what certain numbers do. Number 5 says this. The general purpose, though, is just to keep international peace. And that's fine for the test when you need to answer that. What's the main point of the 14 points? To keep international peace. And who wrote them? President Woodrow Wilson, the U.S. president at that time. So President Wilson will do. Number 18, which country did not agree to the Treaty of Versailles, which that's the treaty that ended the war, and why? Ironically, it was the U.S. Okay, remember? We did not sign it because we didn't like the idea of the League of Nations. And I say ironically because it was our president who wanted that. But we wanted to stay out of international politics. And so we didn't sign the Treaty of Versailles because we didn't like that the League of Nations, which was part of Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, was in there. So we just kind of let it be. 19. In which year did the Great War begin and end? Hopefully you already know this, but you will get asked that. So it begins 1914, ends in 1918, and the U.S. joined in 1917. Number 20, describe how the alliance system helped create a global war. This is where you just need to explain to me that instead of, say, the fight staying between Serbia and Austria-Hungary, the alliance system caused other countries to get involved because they had pledged their assistance. All right, if you have an ally in someone and they go to war, then you're going to call up that alliance system and go to war with them. And so that caused that domino effect for more global involvement. All right, and then know how to locate these things on a map. Let's see. I'm going to leave the map part to you. I did not upload a map to this. And since I gave you every answer, 1 through 20, I'm sure you can look up 21. But here's what you need to be sure of. Make sure you're looking at a 1914 map, pre-World War I. The map changes after the Treaty of Versailles. And so what you're going to look at on the test is that empire map. Germany, Austria-Hungary, Great Britain, Russia, Ottoman Empire, which goes away after World War I. Serbia, France, Italy, Ireland, and Belgium. Okay, so just find you map of Europe 1914 and just know that you can spot those things. It'll be your normal kind of map. You know, I put the letters on it and you just have to match it. All right, I hope this helps. I hope you study. Please, please study. You have to write these answers. And this is a 100-point grade. And this is top-heavy grading. You guys have your projects, and then this test grade, and these are the first grades for your 9 weeks. So do your best, and I'll see you tomorrow.